So, Thanquol is arriving for the Skaven as part of the Lords of the End Times DLC. I was lucky enough to get my beard on the demo that's going to be at Gamescom, and I'm going to show you some of that today, just the units and stuff, because I could show you the battle, but it's actually Thanquol's final battle, and so is a pretty big spoiler, and if you're someone who's been waiting years for this campaign, you probably don't want to see that secondhand for the first time. So today I'm just going to go through Thanquol and the units themselves, and I'll do a video for the battle tomorrow if anyone doesn't care about the spoilers, but if you just want to know about the new Skaven units and Thanquol, here we go. So first of all, if you didn't know, Thanquol's start position on the campaign map is kind of on the southeast fringes of the Empire. It's in the Blackwater province, just to the south of Sylvania, where the Von Carsteins are, so going to be an interesting addition to that area with the Von Carsteins there in Karak Kadrin. I wonder which direction Thanquol will spread if he gets powerful and how much the landscape will change because of him. Now for the little fella himself, he will start on foot, but will get his Bone Ripper mount eventually. So he's going to be a bit of a squishy wizard until he gets the big boy. And as you can see, Bone Ripper's got 4 arms with 4 warp fire cannons on there, so he's no joke in melee and at range. Taking a look at the stats, starting with the melee stats, the armor and melee defense, not great for Thanquol on Bone Ripper, so not the toughest of lords all round. Big armor piercing weapon strength though, and the missile strength is absolutely redonkulous, 4.2k. Armor piercing on that, burnt on that, so leadership reduction, magic and fire attacks as well, so range power is really where Thanquol is going to shine on Bone Ripper. Got a lot of ammunition as well, so should be able to do a whole ton of damage just with that ranged attack alone. The abilities though is where Thanquol himself really comes into play. A multi-use damage resistance there, the dreaded 13th spell, so you can summon Storm Vermin with that one, and of course he is a powerful caster, so he's got a whole bunch of different magics from the different Skaven laws. Does have Frenzy and causes terror, so a lot of power in Thanquol there, mostly going to come from the ranged elements though, the casting of spells, the use of that warp fire ammo. So yeah, to me it feels like Thanquol's going to want to use that ammo before he really tries to get into melee. He should probably avoid it until then because there's so much power in that ammo. Maybe going for single entities might be best as well so you don't miss too much. Shooting at things like infantry or cavalry you can miss quite a bit, so it would be a big waste of ammo unless you can line him up just right or hit a big blob of them. But of course, still got some power in melee, and with those damage resistance abilities, you can pop those every time you're in melee. So by no means a squishy lord, but maybe not quite as tough as he might look. That's my first impressions anyway. Next, the tallest rat you've ever seen, Screech Verminking, the big boy vermin lord, who you can't really tell here with no comparison, but he's pretty much Norscan giant sized. So another big powerful single entity for the Skaven, something they don't have a lot of, only the Hell Pit Abomination otherwise. And his stats, as one might expect, are pretty nuts. Apart from his armor, which is again on the lower side, and being a big boy, that could mean that ranged attacks are going to be a pretty big weakness for him, but otherwise, he's unbreakable, tons of speed, melee attack, melee defense, humongous weapon strength, armor piercing, and bonus versus large. Big charge bonus there too. Big leadership debuff with discouraged, poison, and magical attacks all on that as well, so he's got a lot going for him in the stats department. So melee powerhouse, but also a caster. He's got the dreaded 13th spell as well, so again can summon the Storm Vermin. Another big leadership debuff there with Will of the Verminking, minus 16, so minus 32 with discouraged when he's using that ability. He's also a caster with mixed spells from all the Skaven laws. Vermintide in there, so he's going to be able to summon even more rats. This protection of the Horned Rat up to 60% missile resistant as he loses health. That could maybe help him a little bit with that ranged problem. Although he does have a physical resistance and ward save, so that's going to help with that too. So maybe missiles won't be too bad for him. He is demonic, so that's why he's unbreakable. There's a lot going on with this big boy, so no doubt a terrifying addition for the Skaven roster. As a great man once said, oh scheisse. So just a powerhouse all round, these Vermin Lords, melee, magic, they've got it all. Also pretty quick at 70 speed, so giving the Skaven some power and mobility, which is something they generally don't have tons of due to their lack of cavalry largely. But yeah, a pretty nasty addition for the Skaven roster. Now to some more big boys, but not quite as big, Storm Fiends. These ones with rattling guns. These are basically what happen if you take a rat ogre and you get a rattling gunner and you mash them together, you get these. Now in the stats department, nothing too crazy in the melee with these ones. Decent weapon strength, but melee attack and melee defense a little bit on the lacking side. But obviously it's all about the missile strength, which is huge. Armor piercing, got that suppressed ability. Got a fair bit of ammo, so they can do some serious work with their ranged power. No unique ability to speak of, but these are pretty much as you'd imagine. They're just rattling gunners that are a bit more mobile, but they can go into melee and do some work once they've run out of ammo. Or if somebody should jump on them, they can at least fight back, whereas normal rattling gunners will just die instantly. There's also a Doomflayer Gauntlets version, which, as you can see, have got big bonky ball hands. And that, of course, makes them a melee variant of the Storm Fiends, namely best for smashing infantry. Stats-wise, they're considerably better in the melee, a little more armor, melee attack, melee defense. Weapon strength is pretty huge with bonus versus infantry and armor piercing. So these ones are specifically wanting to get after infantry to do their best work, although their weapon strength is pretty damn big for a monstrous infantry, so they should do good damage to whatever they fight, even cavalry, monsters, whatever. The biggest drawback to these Storm Fiend units though seems to be their leadership. They're not going to be able to stick around for too long if they take a lot of damage, so they could be a bit flaky. So that's all the units I was able to use and see in the demo. There are a bunch more though that weren't in the demo, and we're going to go through them right now, but only with the unit art, because that's all I've got. First up though, Puss Bags. I showed these in my video the other day, I'll link that at the end. These little fellas are built to die. They're less than Skaven slaves even. They will slowly degrade and die as they fight and then explode, causing big leadership penalties, so actually could be pretty huge. Now, I showed these two Storm Fiend variants, the Doomflayer Bonky Ball Hands and the Rattling Gunner version. There's also a Grinder Fist version, which I'm kind of imagining the Warp Grinders. I'm not quite sure if they're going to be the same, whether they're going to have a snare, or whether they'll just be something like anti-large and they'll be the anti-large choice. Although maybe that's the role of the Shock Gauntlet version, although there's a bunch of things a Shock Gauntlet could do, a bunch of debuffs maybe, or some kind of activatable ability. And then there's a couple more ranged versions, a Warp Fire Thrower version, obviously, so that's just Warp Fire Throwers mixed with a Rat Ogre, similar to the Rattling Gunner version, and a Wind Launcher version as well, so that's either going to be similar to the Poison Wind Globadiers or the Poison Wind Mortars. Either way, likely going to be disgustingly wonderfully powerful. So a lot of this DLC is Storm Fiends in various variations, mostly coming with the same stuff the Skaven already have, but just combining them with a monstery package to make them tougher, to make them more mobile. We'll talk about their potential impact in a second. The last few units in the Skaven DLC is another artillery, the Warp Doom Magma Cannon. It's a single piece of artillery that does a lot of damage with one big shot, perhaps similar to a Luminarch. And then there's the Cauldron of 1,000 Poxes, which one can assume is going to be like some kind of support vehicle like the Cathay Woojing Compass or something, probably with some buffs for nearby Skaven and some castable abilities or spells. And then 3 regiments of renown as well, a Plague Claw Catapult, the Storm Fiend Rattling Gunners, and some more Storm Vermin, the Death Vermin. I don't really know anything about those or how they're going to be different, but there they are. So a lot of cool stuff coming to the Skaven roster, although one might say, that's a hell of a lot of reskins. And well, that's kind of true. There is 6 units of Storm Fiends, but they are going to bring quite a lot to the table for the Skaven, I think. Instead of just having weak, crappy front lines, you can now mix some slightly stronger stuff in there, because, you know, Rat Ogres, they're kind of okay for that, but they're not great. So Storm Fiends should be an upgrade to those. And of course, Storm Fiend armies just sound like a good time. Plus, the extra mobility is going to make those weapons much more useful, because Horned Rat knows Warp Fire Throwers are an incredibly powerful unit, but one that are difficult to position well with their short range, can't fire over troops very well, so they can be a bit finicky, but with the Storm Fiends you'll be able to run around, position nicely, do your damage, and then get out the way if you need to, before any infantry catches you. And then some of the other units sounding pretty good as well. The Puss Bags sound like they're going to have some good practical usage, solid leadership debuffs. The Cauldron, if it can support and buff leadership or anything like that, that could be pretty powerful. And then not to mention, of course, the power that the Verminking, and there is Vermin Lords as well, generic Vermin Lords. There's going to be 4 different ones, plus Thanquol and his ranged power and magic power, plus in campaign, you know, who knows how powerful you can make them. So lots of crazy stuff coming for the Skaven. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I'll have another video tomorrow of the battle if you wish to watch that. Spoilers though, of course. But yeah, otherwise, if you'd like to support the channel, check out the YouTube memberships, the Patreon. I will see you in the future.